In North Carolina versus Alford, 1970, the state of North Carolina charged Henry Alford with first-degree murder. That charge carried a possible sentence of life imprisonment or the death penalty. Alford agreed to plead guilty in exchange for a second-degree murder conviction. When Alford took the stand, he testified that he was innocent and only entered a plea of guilty to avoid the death penalty. The judge ensured that Alford's plea was voluntary after consulting counsel. Alford maintained his guilty plea, and after receiving evidence of Alford's extensive criminal history, the judge sentenced Alford to the maximum 30-year sentence. After unsuccessfully attempting to obtain post-conviction relief, Alford petitioned for a writ of habeas corpus. The U.S. District Court for the Middle District of North Carolina denied relief on the grounds that Alford's guilty plea was entirely voluntary. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit reversed, holding that the plea was involuntary because its primary motivation was the fear of death. The legal question the Supreme Court is considering in this case is if it is valid to enter a guilty plea where the defendant maintains his innocence and testifies that the plea is only to avoid the death penalty. The Supreme Court upheld the plea as valid, holding that there was no constitutional violation where the defendant concluded based on competent counsel that it was in his best interest to plead guilty. The court saw no difference between a defendant who maintains his innocence with a plea bargain and one who admits to the crime. So in the arraignment stage of a criminal prosecution, there are three pleas that you enter. There's a guilty plea, there's a not guilty plea, or there's a no contest plea. And so an Alford plea is a guilty plea, and we refer to Alford pleas as guilty pleas when a offender maintains his innocence. So one of the things that we will note to conclude this video is that when a guilty plea is entered in part of the plea bargaining process, a prosecutor has the option to turn down a guilty plea if the individual does not confess or make a statement acknowledging his guilt. That's entirely up to the prosecutor's discretion. So Alford pleas can be accepted by the court, but typically guilty pleas are entered and prosecutors require some statement or acknowledgement of guilt.